Hello, this is Malcolm Rose. Today we're doing something a little different. This is a retrospective, an analysis of my YASD or YASD or yet another stupid death. It's just an acronym in the crawl community for when you die or lose a character. Usually in a dumb way. Kind of a nod towards the fact that when you die in this game, it's usually your fault. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100 really. This character, the one we're talking about, is the Demonspawn Artificer, where I had won 8 times in a row, and then on the 9th game I lost. And we're going to kind of examine how that happened and why. Before I get into that, I'd like to talk about why I'm going to do that. I think that these kind of things are useful. The most obvious reason you would want to do it is to not make the same mistake in the future. If you didn't recognize a particular thing as a threat, if you didn't perform the right response to a particular problem or hurdle, or maybe you did something that was very maladaptive for that particular situation, maybe you'll learn for next time not to do that exact thing. Or you'll even improve your overall play. Like, you may, in the process of analyzing what happened, what mistakes you made, how you died, so on and so forth, you may discover multiple minor mistakes that you made, or maybe not even misplays, just maybe slightly not so optimal things that you did. And this could improve your play across the board on characters that maybe are totally different archetypes than the one that you lost on. But barring all of that, I think it's just a fun activity. Personally, one of my favorite things about Crawl is that it encourages you to be mindful. It encourages you to put deep thought, or at least some thought, into the way that you play. And part of that is calming down, not just jumping into another game, and maybe just putting a few thoughts into what happened, how you can improve for the future. Personally, I enjoy that. So as for what happened, I'll just kind of dive in. Well, first of all, there's always general errors. In this case, I was playing too fast. There was just some general foolishness. Certain things I did, like I was waiting around turns for my haunt minions to do things, but there were floating eyes next to me or close to me on the screen within line of sight. There were just some really obvious mistakes that happened. I'm not going to get into that because I think that's pretty clear already. That's just a result of playing too quickly, playing without giving the necessary respect to what was going on and the kind of character I was playing. And with regards to that, that's the combo. The combo of Demonspawn Artificer, the combo of, a character that's worshipping Kiku and is rushing for high-level magic. I wasn't really respecting that combo very much. Also, the vault itself was a problem, and the floating eyes were a problem. With regards to the combo, a lot of that comes down to my defenses. I was playing the character like it was a melee character. That is to say, I was playing quickly. I was engaging things in melee a lot. I was assuming that I could handle a lot more than I could handle, so I wasn't really worried as much as I should have been about the paralysis. This character, once I took off the chainmail, as you can see from the screenshot, had 9 AC, 13 EV, and 0 shield. That's miserably low. You would have to be like an octopode or something to have crappier defenses than that. I had a robe on. And more importantly, perhaps more importantly, I only had 105 hit points. I had no business even being where I was being, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. Also, I wasn't really using all the tools in my toolbox. I had Infestation, but I wasn't really using it, and it would have been an excellent thing for that particular scenario that ended up killing me. And most of all, and I kind of touched on this already, I needed to play slower, not just because it's a good idea, not just because I was on a streak and that makes you want to play even slower, play more carefully, but mainly because I was a caster. When you're a caster, that calls for you to be a lot more cautious than when you're playing melee. That's my personal opinion. I believe that I don't think you'll find too many people disagreeing with that either, where in a melee like a Trog guy you can tab a lot. You really can't do that on a caster until you've gotten to level 9 spells and you're spamming Shatter or something. Now, for the vault, I'm going to say this one time. Nothing I'm about to say changes the fact that dying in the vault was my fault. but I do have some grievances with this particular vault. It's called Hangman Spin Cycle. I think it's dumb. I think it's overpowered. I think that it places things like floating eyes which shouldn't be placed by vaults. I think that effectively it turns D15 into a level of depths. If you get it on D15 like I did, usually it shows up in depths in my experience. It's just a badly designed vault. You may disagree with that, and that's fine, but that's my opinion. I should probably explain vaults real quick. I'm not talking about the branch vaults with a capital V. I'm just talking about vaults as in the specially designed little sections of dungeon that people can submit to the game and get put in. This one happens to be an entire floor, so it pretty much hard sets almost everything on the floor. Not the monsters themselves, except for the floating eyes, but the layout. So I think that people will probably at least agree that badly designed vaults exist. That's just a fact of life. But the thing is that you can't, as much as you might want to complain about that, and I encourage you to, if you want to try to get a bad vault removed, feel free. You're going to need to accept that they exist, they're going to get into the game, and you're going to need to play around them. But thankfully, the game generally gives you the tools you need to play around badly or too powerfully designed vaults. You have your consumables. In this case, there were some tools like Fog Scroll, Fear Scroll, even Cause Fear as a spell, which I did memorize, which I could have used to deal with the floating eyes a little more intelligently. Haunt was not the answer here. The minions got bogged down in the corners due to the design of the vault. The minions didn't necessarily kill the floating eyes very quickly. Even though the floating eyes are low defense, low hit points, there's no guarantee that the Haunt guys are going to act quick enough to stop me from getting paralyzed. Finally, when it comes to these kinds of vaults, if you really hate a vault, and even if it's a floor-wide vault, you can just skip it for a while. There was nothing that was holding my hand and holding me down and making me do D15. In retrospect, I should have just left immediately as soon as I realized it was Hangman Spin Cycle, and I did know what it was. I didn't know it by name, but I did know it was a bad vault. I could have bailed. I didn't. Also, finally, floating eyes, special mention. I do still think they might be buggy. I'm almost positive that they would occasionally come back into view and immediately paralyze me, which disagrees with how I think they're supposed to work. I believe stutter casting, the way it's supposed to work is they have to stare at you first, and if you break line of sight, it resets the whole process. I may be wrong on that. I would love to hear from a dev. I have not asked yet. But even if that's the case, even if they are buggy, that's not what killed me. I got paralyzed when I was trying to go up some stairs. So whether they're buggy or not, that is not the thing that killed me. There's still a top tier threat either way. Well, unless you're a Formicid, which are immune to paralysis. But with that said, I'm just going to assume they are buggy from now on. I'm going to assume that if it's on the screen, it can paralyze me immediately, and that will cause me to play even more carefully. And I won't fault again when it comes to floating eyes. I did know they were dangerous. I didn't quite know exactly how quickly that they could perform the paralysis. They've undergone some changes, not too recently, but within the last few months, where, well, maybe it's almost a year now. I'm not sure, but they used to be able to paralyze you immediately. Now supposedly they can't. I'm just not sure if I believe that or not. So definitely something you want to play very, very carefully around. Perhaps the most dangerous thing in the game, or one of them. But with all that said, it's important to not give up in this game. If you're trying to learn to streak, or if you're trying to learn to get your first win, your first 3-rune win, if you give up, if you start flailing against the game, if you die and then you immediately start another game and don't bother to learn anything about what happened, why you died, what mistakes you made, that's a form of giving up, in my opinion, because you're just zooming on ahead and you haven't really learned to improve. You haven't learned to play better or to make better decisions. You're just kind of relying on the RNG to maybe be a little kinder to you next time. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think that if you want to become good at this game, or if you want to become good at, well, anything really, trial and error is fine, but you need to actually learn something from it. You need to internalize things, and that requires just a little bit of this analysis. I'm not saying you have to go grab a camera and a microphone and start a YouTube channel and make YouTube videos about it. You don't have to do that. But I mean, something I used to do is well, not just with Dungeon Crawl, but with anything. If I am trying something and it doesn't work and it goes pretty awry, just keep some notes. Just write down what exactly you think is going wrong. For example, in Dungeon Crawl, what killed me? Well, it was melee while I was paralyzed. What led up to that scenario? Like, how did I get there? And keep going steps backwards, like turns backwards, and say, well, what could I have done differently here? How about one turn before that? How about 5 turns before that? And pretty soon, you'll start to get a picture of where it is that you made a mistake. And it may have been a long time ago, like closer to the beginning of the game when you decided to do your skills. Maybe you did those wrong. But it may be closer to the event itself. What's important is just don't give up. It can be a very frustrating game. Life can be frustrating sometimes. Anything you do can be frustrating, any complicated task. And you're going to mess up and you're going to fail. But if you don't give up and you kind of thoughtfully, mindfully go about trying to figure out what went wrong, I think that you'll have more success with that than mindlessly flailing at the problem and just hoping it changes the next time. But that's just my opinion. As for the future of the channel and the future of Dungeon Crawl runs for me, I'm going to try to streak again. It's still my goal to get a world record on this, which is I think 43 wins in a row. I do think I'm capable of it if I play a little more mindfully, a little more carefully. I think that I'm probably going to go in with something fun and easy, maybe a series of Berserkers even. That might be a fun thing to do. Maybe I'll do Great Berserker. Since people seem to like Berserkers, it might be a nice series. I'll probably open up with another speed run, see if I can't do better than my previous 1 hour 4 minutes, I think it is. I'd have to check on that. Probably another Mibby. I might do a Deep Dwarf Berserker. But we'll see. Not so sure on that yet. But I am still planning on doing some streaks, and we will see where that takes me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this retrospective. Hopefully you don't die in your game, but if you do, maybe do a little bit of an analysis on your playstyle and see what went wrong. It might help you. Until next time, I am signing out.